You know I love talking about classic Hollywood actors, so here's another one for you. Face in the Crowd, The Odd Couple, The Fortune Cookie, and even more recent fare like JFK. I'm talking about Walter Matthau. Few actors had the same kind of comedic, dry sensibilities, which kind of towed the line between dramatic irony and straight-up sarcasm. His often unsmiling and rumpled characters were loved by critics and audiences alike, and in fact it led to 3 nominations by the Academy Awards, and he actually won Best Supporting Actor for The Fortune Cookie. Walter Matthau had Jewish ancestry, and when you find out what the original surname was, which was not Matthau, you're going to realize just why he may have taken on a different last name to make it somewhat more easy for the general public to pronounce. I'm Yonah Paley, and I believe genealogy is fun. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the ancestry of Walter Jake Matthau and try to see where in Europe his family came from. He was born October 1st, 1920 in Manhattan, New York, and the very first record that I could find of him was a 1925 New York State Census, where the family is listed under the last name Matz. Now, this is just one of many variations of the surname. In fact, his older brother Henry also took on the last name Matthau, but spelled it with an O-W at the end instead of an A-U. They were both children of Milton Matthau and Rose Borowski or Borovsky, immigrants from the Russian Empire. And on the marriage certificate, the father was actually going by the name Melas Machin. And Machin, as I soon found out, was the most common variation of the original surname that was taken on by many uncles and cousins of Walter's who came to the United States. It didn't take very long to find a naturalization record that revealed what Milton's original Jewish name was, which that in combination with his ship manifest turns out that the original name that he went under was Melech Matushansky. So as you can see, Matushansky, especially in the old way where it's spelled with like a Z, and it's very, very difficult for probably the average person to have pronounced back then. So it makes sense that he would have picked a last name like Machin or Matthau. The ship manifest gives us 2 important pieces of information about the family. The first being that the city that the Matushanskys came from was Bila Tserkva, which is actually the largest city in Kiev region of Ukraine. And the reason this is, and it's not Kiev, is because Kiev is actually a self-governing city that is essentially under its own administration. So Bila Tserkva is in the Kiev region, and it just happens to be that it's the largest city there. The second important bit of information found on the ship manifest, which also used in conjunction with the marriage certificate, yields the name of Milton's parents, which were Volko Matushansky and Tsipa Rudkovsky. And Volko is a Yiddish variation of another Yiddish name, Wolf, or Velvel, both which mean wolf, as in the animal. So Volko and Wolf and Velvel, they're all basically the same name, they're just variations of one another. Even though Melech's birth record is not available on JewishGen, those of 2 of his siblings, Moshe and Liba, are. And from looking through ship manifests from Matushanskys who came from Bila Tserkva, I was actually able to find 2 more brothers. One of these brothers was named Arnold, and I learned something really interesting from finding a newspaper article. So Arnold moved to Denver, Colorado, and there was an instance where one of his brothers died and didn't leave a will. Some officials in Russia had sent a request claiming that like 8 siblings of this brother were all claiming the inheritance, and Arnold hired a lawyer and basically said that this was a plot by the Russian government to try to get the inheritance from him, because he had thought that all of his siblings had died already in Russia. So maybe he heard or thought that they had died in the Holocaust, but the thing is, I couldn't find another article resolving this specific matter, so I don't know whether he actually ended up proving or disproving this theory of his, but it definitely was a fascinating situation, and it also goes to show that there were definitely a lot more siblings of Melech's who had been living in Ukraine. Now, due to one of the few birth records we do have in Belet Tsarkva, we're actually able to go one generation further past Volko, which is that his father on one of the birth records is listed as being Moshe. So we do know that Walter Matthau's great-grandfather was named Moshe Matushansky. And the online records end there. But there is something that I want to point out, which is that Alex Krakowski, who in the genealogy world is like a superhero, he has fought to get the Ukrainian local archives to release the records online for public consumption. So he has a big wiki full of scanned metrical books from various parts of Ukraine, and there are a lot, as you can see, from Belet Tsarkva. But because the documents are in, Russian or Ukrainian, you would definitely need somebody to translate them in order to see the contents. But I'm pretty confident, given just how many books there are, there's probably documents relating to this Matushansky family. So if any distant cousins of Walter Matthau are watching this and they want to try to research the family even further, that would be the place to look, would be Alex Krakowski's wiki, which I'll actually put a link to in the description down below. So there you have it. That is the family of Walter Matthau, the Matushansky family from Belet Tsarkva. And that wraps up our episode. If you liked it, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the YouTube channel. As always, I'm looking forward to bringing you more videos about famous Jews, as well as tips and tricks that you can use in your own genealogy research. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll get you next time.